Askreddit asks people who grew up middle, upper class, what did you not believe about low-income households but it was actually true?
That a vacation isn't yearly, it's a once-in-a-lifetime event.
At this time of year I'm reminded that our vacations growing up were always a trip to a relative's house. Never stayed in a hotel until I was an adult.
Vacations were for rich people. We did free day trips to the local beach, at a man-made lake, the United States Air Force Museum, hiking. The thing is, I don't look back at my childhood with regret. We had enough fun doing these free things and I often take my two kiddos to these same places.
I'll share a story that woke me up. I was a manager on a PC refresh, where we had employees out in the field. Since they were traveling, one of their perks was that we gave them $50 a day for food. All they had to do was send in their receipts. I was approving receipts for the week, and noticed that one of our employees had only submitted a receipt for $25. So I called him to make sure he understand how the reimbursement process worked, and to ask for the rest of his receipts, which typically were around $300 per week. He told me that all he bought for the week was bread and bologna, since he didn't have the money to front the expenses, which is why the receipt was so low. I was floored, and that is when I started to realize what it means to not have any savings or access to credit. Needless to say, we fronted him the money the next week. Closing parenthesis.
Thought food stamps were a stamp book you trade for specific food items. Did not know utilities could be turned off due to non-payment. Did not even realize people didn't pay their bills. My family talks a lot and asks a lot of questions. My husband's family found it very offensive at first, assuming we were prying and they were ashamed of their answers. The kid not going on the field trip wasn't uninterested. His parents didn't have the money for him to go. Many of us thought he was just a bad kid. Same thing with homework. My parents assisted appropriately. Other kids had no help at all. Some kids didn't have money to play sports in school. Some kids had to work and give their parents their money to pay bills. The list goes on forever. I have learned so much from my husband.
That some kids only got hand-me-down clothes and rarely got something new of their own.
Only time I got new pants, socks, underwear and blankets was on Christmas. And that meant money was spent on essentials, not pleasures. People seemed shocked that I was fucking stoked to get new socks. Edit. Thank you stranger for the gold.
I went to private school and there was a girl that I assumed was on scholarship, financial aid, and she always smelled really bad. I saw her putting on deodorant in the bathroom once and I guess I must have stared a second too long because she told me that she didn't have anything clean to wear because her mum didn't have money for the laundromat that week. I couldn't believe that people had to wear dirty clothes until they could go to the laundromat. I just thought everyone had a washing machine in their house. A high school by me recently added a laundry room for students to use if they had a need. They can talk to the coordinator, move loads between classes, and have clean clothing available by the end of the day.
Not something I couldn't believe, but something I didn't really realize. The temperature of the house is strictly controlled in the houses of lower-income people that I know. When I was a kid, I'd turn the heat up to 80, and set the AC at 65.
I grew up in a middle-class home and am now a teacher in a Title I, aka lower-income, high school. I always knew that there were people who were less fortunate. But my first year of teaching has been a real eye-opener. 5 to 7 kids sit in my room during lunch every day. I noticed that one student either didn't eat or had a Coke and hot Cheetos. I learned that he only sometimes had lunch money, and if he did, it was only $2 to $3. This December, many students didn't have enough warm clothes. And of that portion, most walk 1+ miles to and from school. Many don't have the money for school supplies, let alone lab fees. Only some classes have lab fees. Mine don't. I bought big boxes of granola bars and paper, binders, etc., to give to the kids whenever they need. But as a fresh from college 22-year-old with $45 in debt, there's only so much I can do. It sometimes breaks my heart. but I hope being a good teacher and mentor helps them in ways that money can't. Edit. I can't tell you how much your support means to me. It was a rough first semester and you have no idea how much I needed this encouragement. Closing parenthesis dot. What it meant to not be able to afford something. Or to be broke. My parents would say, "We can't afford that." But it really meant, we'd rather spend that $1,000 on ourselves, on our next vacation, whatever, instead of on a new toy, computer, phone for you. We're broke meant, we've used too much money in our checking account. We'd still have saving accounts and investments. Of course. So, no money, really just meant, no more money that we should be spending right now. Because I grew up this way. I viewed money as something that just magically never ran out. I would get really annoyed when my friends would say, "I can't afford that," or "I'm broke," as a reason for not doing something. Because I viewed it as an excuse instead of a reality. The first time as an adult when I literally couldn't afford something. Because the $50 check I had deposited hadn't gone through and so my debit card was declined. Was a surreal, and horrible, feeling. I suddenly understood what "I'm broke" and "I can't afford that" really meant.
That some people can't afford to fill up their car with petrol. I loved when I used to read articles of money-saving tips hoping for something new to me. When they started out with, save $5 a day by cutting out pricey coffee drinks. I knew I could just close the tab because if I had $5 to spend on coffee every day, I sure as hell wouldn't be walking to work the last 3 days of every pay period because I was out of gas. That was a few years and a couple of jobs ago. I no longer struggle to buy gasoline.
Just how little money people are paid. When I was younger, I figured that approximately $40,000 per year was the lowest someone could earn.
Lol. Minimum wage full-time is about $12,000.
By contrast, when I was younger, $40,000 seemed like something only rich people could attain. I once mentioned to my grandmother that my goal as a fresh college graduate was to find a job that would pay me at least $30,000 per year. She told me to get my head out of the clouds.
That some people have never been out of state. I thought that everyone took vacations multiple times a year. Some people never leave the county they grew up in. 25 plus years ago I drove my sister, her friend, and a few others to the amusement park, and that was the first time my sister's 15-year-old friend had been out of the county we lived in. Note: county, not country. Counties are what US states and UK countries are subdivided into, along with other countries.
In the UK, I have genuinely encountered people from wealthy and rural backgrounds who genuinely thought that house numbers were only an American thing, and that every house in Britain had a name. I'd hate to be a postman if that were the case.
I live in the US. Please explain this. My house has a number, not a name.
Are you sure they weren't pulling your leg? Surely they've heard of 10 Downing Street.
From the flip side, when I was in college, I actually lost friends because I couldn't afford to do the activities they did. Like going to bars every weekend. Or going to multiple concerts, raves, festivals over the summer. It was partly about not having the money. And partly about not being able to take time off work. It was embarrassing to be 20 and tell other 20-year-olds I couldn't afford what they took for granted. So I'd tell them I didn't like bars or I didn't like raves. They took that to mean I didn't like them.
Some people literally cannot go to the doctor. If they get sick, they just hope that they get better or they fucking die. That's it. Same things with pets. Some people can't have pets because if the pet gets sick, then they can't afford to help it. Edit. As several have pointed out, you will be treated in the US even if you cannot pay. There are various resources to accommodate this. My obviously limited experience is that some financially struggling people are reticent to visit the doctor when ill. If they are definitely going to die, I'm sure they would go and be treated at the ER regardless of ability to pay.
I always thought people talking about their fridge being empty was an exaggeration. Like there's plenty of food. Just nothing you want to eat. Then I started dating a girl who didn't have a lot of money. And I opened the fridge door and saw only Hawaiian punch and ketchup. And I was just like, well shit.
Those couple days between the last shopping trip running out and my parents' next paycheck was the worst. Scrounging to put together a meal but always coming through. My mom was an angel.
Grew up dirt poor in the country. Things middle-class people didn't believe. People don't live in single wides because they like it. They do it because it's all they can afford. Out in the sticks, a double wide with good underpinning is middle class. Having a garden is not a whimsical thing that people do for kicks. It can be the only way you eat decent veggies. A space heater is how you stay warm when keeping the trailer heat on will result in $400 utility bills, and that's more than rent, trailer mortgage. I learned to shoot a gun at 12 because I had to help put food on the table. A single deer is good meat for a long ass while. There are people who are one generation removed from outhouses. If they haven't actually used one. If there is a snowstorm. Canning keeps you alive because the power will be out for 2 weeks sometimes. My grandmother literally fed 10 people one winter for a week and a half. People join the military in relatively high numbers because it's the easiest way out of crushing poverty, or about the only way they're going to college.
My wife and I grew up very blue collar. Now we are doing quite well for ourselves. What was really hard for us to realize is how much people rely on each other at the blue collar level. People don't have much, so they have social networks to help each other out. Go to any blue-collar neighborhood and you'll see kids outside playing. Adults out socializing. People working on their cars, etc. Go to an upper-middle class or wealthy neighborhood and for the most part you won't see those things. Poorer people need the social network to survive. The difficult part for the upwardly mobile is that once you make enough money to leave blue-collar life, the social protection tends to go away as well. Randy down the street isn't going to fix your furnace for a case of beer. Your neighbor Jim isn't going to help you dig that hole in your yard in exchange for watching his kids so he and his wife can see a movie tomorrow night. Stuff like that does happen with the wealthy, but not nearly as much as with the lower income folks. To us at least. It seems like the more a person gains in wealth, the more they lose with the sense of community. I could be wrong.
Eating out at restaurants isn't common for everyone. My mom gave a girl on my basketball team a ride home from an away game. I can't remember what the reason. We decided to grab a bite to eat and asked her if she had a preference. She picked a buffet place, saying that it is where her family goes. Turns out it was the only restaurant she'd been to, other than fast food from time to time. A few months later she was with us at an Italian place that was slightly upscale. She didn't know how to order, so my mom did it for her. For dessert, she asked for cherry cheesecake and then whispered to me that she just scraped the cherries off. I flagged down the server and had him change it to plain cheesecake. I felt so sorry for her because she was just uncomfortable. I also realized I was pretty spoiled and appreciated my parents much more.
When I got to college, realized that some students were paying their own way. That was humbling. I wasn't exactly from a rich family, but couldn't get my mind around that.
I did that. I feel like it aged me a lot. I didn't have a lot of fun cause I was always working or studying. I worked since I was 14, but the combo of like full-time work plus full-time school for 4 years just drained me mentally and physically.
When I was little I didn't understand why my friends' families didn't just save money to make life better. My parents always taught me how to save money and showed me the savings for things like family vacations, new cars, and emergencies, unexpected home repairs, etc. If you want something, just work hard and save for it. Right? Have a little self-discipline. Until I was older I simply didn't get that for many people there was no money to be saved in the first place, or that it all could be wiped out in a single instance. It really put the whole pull yourself up by your bootstraps concept into perspective for me. It's not something I believe in anymore.
You don't just get up and go to the doctor when you are sick. Or for a yearly physical. Edit. Yes. Here in the US. A good friend sums it up for me. Doctors are for rich people.
I pay for health insurance bare minimum each month. But I almost never actually go to the doctor. People tell me, oh, you're coming down with something? Go to the doctor. They just don't understand that I have medical insurance effectively, so that if I need a $75 surgery, it's just so I'll owe $35 worth of debt. Not $75
I thought that lower-income black neighborhoods were crime-ridden because the people didn't care, didn't work, and didn't have the same moral footing. Then I moved into a very rough neighborhood and was the only white guy. My neighbors were amazing, hard workers who struggled to make ends meet. Took no shit from the troublemakers who littered, bought, sold drugs, etc. Had a deep and strong community network. And wanted all the same things I wanted. Was truly eye-opening.
This was an eye-opener to me also. But I remember hearing somewhere, most people are just trying to get along and do the best they can with what they have. That's always stuck with me.
That some families are so poor their children only went to school for the free food.
There are programs to feed those children during school holidays because they usually only get a meal at school.
I went to high school with kids and young adults who snuck in for the lunch. Some used the wealthier kids' ID number, as they ate in the snack bar or went off campus. Others were friendly enough with the lunch lady that they got their meal, no questions asked.
That kids had to share rooms with their siblings. I thought that it only happened in the movies.
If you come from a large family, room sharing will happen even if you're middle class.
Not only did I share a bedroom, I shared a bed with a bedwetter. I didn't even have a bedroom until I was in like 9th grade.
Kids doing bad at school were not always bad students or lazy. They didn't have enough to eat, were malnourished and couldn't concentrate. That not everyone has a passport.
People give Americans shit for this, but it's pointless to have one if you're so poor you'll never be able to leave the country anyway.
To be fair, you can do a lot of expensive and exotic traveling in the US without a passport.
Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe to support the channel, and above all, have an excellent day, you marvelous people.